This is the Fantasy Football Fellowship podcast, where we unpack fantasy, faith, and life. I'm Bryce Johnson with Pastor Trip Smith, and we are your fantasy coaches here to encourage you and help you win while you play fantasy football with purpose. As we provide fantasy advice, we won't always be right, but we hope we'll be convincing. We're coming to you live from the Unpacking It Ministry studio in Charlotte, North Carolina, specifically Mount Holly, and we are pumped to be here today because tonight, Trip and I will be in an auction draft together with some of you listeners. It is one of the Unpacking It leagues, and so we are fired up for that. Plus, we just had another weekend of preseason football. We are gaining more and more clarity and at the same time, adding more and more confusion to certain backfields and wide receiving rooms and all that sort of thing. And so what do we make of all of it? We'll try to offer some insight today. And we pretty much do this every year. And other podcasts have their own version of this, where we share the players that we are most excited to draft. And we call it the players we're pounding the table for. And so we will share each position, the players that we're pounding the table for this season, and share some of our favorite players to draft. Kind of my guys type of mentality. And so we'll have some fun with that. And then we'd love to hear what players are you pounding the table for that are, the players you're most excited to draft. So let us know. You can leave comments wherever you are watching or listening right now. And so we're glad to be on all the different platforms from YouTube platforms, and then everybody that listens on the podcast later. So great to have you joining us live. And those of you that listen later, we appreciate you as well. And hopefully all of you have already signed up for your Fantasy Football Fellowship free membership. It's on the website, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. All season long, we will provide weekly breakouts where we take fantasy concepts related to the Bible, related to life, and these breakouts are designed for you and your league to discuss during weekly league meetings. And so we have discussion questions, a challenge, and the content that we will also talk about here on the podcast each week as well. But all of that is packaged and designed for you and your league to really develop relationships within the league, but then also grow in your faith all season long. And so get you and your league to sign up for free, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. And appreciate those of you that also support the ministry financially with your donations. It's huge. And so it allows us to continue to get the word out and bring the content every week. We're also really excited because we are getting close, and we might actually be there, but we're right around 100 leagues participating and signed up and getting ready for Fantasy Football Fellowship. So we hope that your league is one of them. And if not, make that the case. So check that out, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. So praise God for what he's doing through this ministry. And we're really thankful and excited to be a part of it. And so today we've got plenty to discuss. And so let's get right to it as we begin with some of the fantasy shenanigans going on. Here we go.
Fantasy shenanigans.
All right, so let's say hello to Trip Smith. Trip, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. You said it exactly right. It's one of those wonderful times of the year where we start to put together some preseason themes. Before we pound the table for any individual player today, I'm just pounding the table for fantasy football.
Yes.
How fun it is. I just want to tell my friends. I want to invite more friends to play with me. I'm trying to talk my family into doing a family league. We're right in the heart of draft season, so man, it's fun. And it's also shenanigan season because we're getting some little news stories that have real implications for the season. And so sifting through those, which of these is legit, which is just hype, is one of the interesting things about this time of year.
Yes. So we will get into some of the news that has provided some shenanigans. And then also we're going to talk about messy situations, backfields, teams, wide receiver rooms. So we'll get to that in a moment. But one of the big stories today, and one of the more just sort of intriguing situations, was down in Tampa Bay with their wide receivers. We know Mike Evans every year, reliable, consistent, 1,000 yards, a ton of touchdowns. We know he's been there. But then, Chris Godwin, it's like, okay, is he going to come back from injury? They decided to re-sign him. How good is he going to be this year? And then at the end of last year, Jalen McMillan was such a good wide receiver, finished unbelievably strong while those other guys were injured. And so it's like, all right, where does he fit in? Because then during the draft, they also drafted Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who's an absolute stud. Well, now Jalen McMillan is out for, looks like, maybe for the season. I mean, neck injury.
I don't know if they've
could be
said
for a
season
while,
yet, but a bad neck
could
injury.
Be anytime you start talking about the neck.
Yeah.
So that came out today. So we're still trying to figure out all the details. But now Egbuka, I mean, he's going to be climbing up draft boards,
Yes.
and he was already an intriguing guy because he's been playing so well. So what did you kind of make of this? And this is, to me, has some major ramifications.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I mean, I think Chris Godwin, no telling when he's going to come back, what kind of shape he'll be in when he comes back. And I think if there's one thing we've learned over the last 10 plus, you don't bet against Mike Evans, right? You don't bet against that guy. He is Mr. Reliable, just 1,000 yards every season. But he does have these little nagging injuries, seems mostly related to his hamstring. So it's not hard for him to imagine. It's not hard to imagine him missing time. And I think there's a scenario where you could have a stretch of the season where Egbuka is the guy for what has been a good offense. The other, I mean, we've seen in the preseason Bucky Irving catching some passes. If he starts to make more receptions than he did last season and gets more passing work, the way that kind of Rachaad White has gotten that for them in the last couple of years, then he could also be a value even at where he's being drafted very high among running backs. And then I just think if Mike Evans gets some little nagging injury, they got to pass the ball to somebody other than Egbuka. And Cade Otton has shown in stretches in the past that he can be a reliable NFL tight end. And he's one of these guys that you could sort of stream. You could kind of plug and play when bye weeks start hitting at your tight end position. So that one's really, really important. Yeah, that I was excited about Jalen McMillan. I'm sad to hear about this injury for him. And I think it's big news for Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, it really does. So how high will he go? Ooh, that's going to be interesting. So I have to analyze that a little bit more. But I think he can be the wide receiver too there. I think he'll be better than Godwin. So
he's going as the wide receiver 44 right now.
So probably
he's going to climb up ADP, but I think you
closer
can feel
to
pretty
30.
Good about him as your third wide receiver. So if you can draft him in the 40s, you could have a real value there.
Yeah. No, so that's big news. The other thing going on in Indy, Daniel Jones is the guy. Now, this goes against kind of what you were rooting for and counting on with Anthony Richardson. And first, I just have to say this because I listened to some of the reaction to it. We can't give up on a quarterback who's 23 years old.
Yeah.
So I understand Anthony Richardson's not ready. He's not the guy. He's not the clear franchise guy. They never should have drafted him 4th overall. He was probably too raw to be drafted that early. And the same story with the guy who's now with the Trey Lance.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. You don't give up on a guy completely, but I understand the Colts going with Daniel Jones, sort of a proven veteran. Fine. He's not great, but he's okay. So I understand the decision, but the idea that now, this is the end of Anthony Richardson. No, not necessarily. He could probably play this year too. But for us today, where we're looking at kind of messy situations, I've already been confused with what direction to go with Indy's pass catchers. Michael Pittman has had a moment, but then last year kind of not great. Josh Downs, somewhat of a breakout, but then do we expect that to continue? Then he's always got injury concerns. And then Alec Pierce is a guy who had a couple huge boom weeks. And then Adonai Mitchell, kind of a decent draft pick last year. So it's been a messy situation on who to draft. Now with the news that, okay, it is Daniel Jones. Now as we look at this wide receiver core, what do you make of it?
I mean, the first thing to say is I have a high degree of certainty that before this season is over, Anthony Richardson will start more than one game for the Indianapolis Colts. That said, I think that right now, based on who both of these players are, and this is not saying a lot because neither one of them are great passers, but I think Daniel Jones is the quarterback that you would want to have back there if you are invested in a pass catcher for the Indianapolis Colts at the start of the season. If you have a Josh Downs, if you believe in the resurgence of Michael Pittman. But the player that I'm most excited for there is Tyler Warren. Their tight end, Tyler Warren, they in the preseason, they have been scheming all sorts of ways to get the ball in his hands. And when he gets it, he looks like a freak. I mean, he looks like a man amongst boys out there. And so I think Daniel Jones being the starter is probably better for all those pass catchers. And the only one that I'm excited to invest in as their current ADP is probably Tyler Warren. I might take a flyer on Adonai Mitchell, maybe Michael Pittman, because he just keeps getting pressed further and further down draft boards. But Warren is a guy that I'm very excited about. And as someone who typically waits to draft a tight end, if I see Warren there, like tight end 8, 9, something like that, and he slips a little bit in my draft, I would be excited to take him earlier than I typically draft tight ends.
So you've now teased one of the players that I'll be pounding the table for in just a few minutes. In just a few minutes. So let me I'll save it until that segment. But I would say for all these receivers, I'm not real excited to draft any of them. I just don't have a good sense of any of them. And then, Daniel Jones, he'll have some games where these players will get a lot of catches. So receptions, I think, could be possible. But as far as touchdowns, I don't know. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is intriguing. Right. To me, he moves up a little bit.
Might be good news for Jonathan
Taylor.
The more
I think about the Colts is, let's not give up on Jonathan Taylor. He's somewhat of a forgotten elite running back. And he's clearly the one. And I think he'll have a nice season. I think you could feel good about drafting Jonathan Taylor, especially in the second round.
There was a running back who started his career with a bang, and everybody sort of referred to him as like an elite running back in the NFL. And then he got nagging injuries over and over again. And then one season he stayed healthy and put it all together. And that running back's name was Saquon Barkley. And there's a little bit of like a correspondence there to me with Jonathan Taylor, where we're just tired of hearing about how he's a great NFL running back who always has these ankle injury, just little nitpick reasons why he doesn't work out. If he ever stays healthy for a whole season, which I think that he'll be a guaranteed top 10 running back if he stays healthy, So it's just a guy, it's no one oohs and ahs when you pick him in a draft, but I feel great about having Jonathan Taylor as my first running back on a fantasy team.
Yeah, I think so too. So the other shenanigans taking place is in Washington with the Commanders. I mean, this is as much shenanigans as you can believe, but Brian Robinson Jr. last year, very solid on a Washington team that went to the NFC Championship game, and now they're going to trade him. And what a story for him too. Remember, he missed part of the season. He was shot, or what was his story?
He got shot coming into his rookie season.
It was his rookie season.
And missed most of that season. Yeah, and then last, and kind of never looked quite right. And now I think they did not choose to pick up his kind of 5th-year option. And so this is the last year of his contract with Washington.
That's right.
And everything that you hear about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Now, you brought this up a couple weeks ago. You were before everybody on this one.
The things that you are hearing about his dynamism, he had a great touchdown run in their preseason game last night. And the story of why he only played one game his final year of college when he was at Arizona, again, doesn't have to do with injury or performance on his part. It has to do with eligibility rules that somebody made a mistake. And I don't think that they are going to trade Brian Robinson.
Oh, you don't?
I don't, because like you said, he was productive last year. And in general, I think running backs who are on the final year of their contract, unless a team is just absolutely desperate at running back, which at this point I can't think of.
Cleveland, Dallas,
maybe Cleveland. Maybe those are the two that come to mind. But I think Cleveland's going to hold out for Quinshon Judkins now. And I think Dallas, who knows what Dallas is going to do? You can't make any prognostications about their GM, and the crazy actions that he's going to take. But I don't think that Robinson gets traded. I think from the outset of the season, Krosky-Merritt eats into Robinson's workload. And I think there's a real scenario where he replaces him within the first couple of weeks of the season. And that could be an absolute steal in your draft for where he has been going. He was going in the 70s among running backs, and now he's shooting up.
I think he's only a value if you've already drafted, because I think now he's going to jump up, and I'm not 100% sure that he's going to have enough volume to be the guy. Because I'm looking at the rest of these guys. Austin Eckler's still there, and when he's healthy, he's relevant.
I think Eckler might actually be the guy to target
But I don't know if you want to target him because he's 30 plus. I'm a huge Eckler guy. I love Eckler.
Let's look and see where he's going. You keep going. I interrupted you there.
But then you've also got Chris Rodriguez, who even last night during the preseason looked pretty good. And then Jeremy McNichols last year. So they're willing to play a bunch of different running backs. I think it's going to be a true committee. And yes, does Eckler have a role? So I'm not totally poo-pooing drafting Eckler, but I'm not sure that the upside is great. There's a decent floor there. He'll get some touchdowns certain weeks. I had Eckler last year, and when he was healthy, he was very solid for me. But then if your theory is true and Robinson does somehow stick around, then it's just a true mess.
Yeah.
But
I think it's going to be a mess. I mean, that's the most likely outcome there. So whoever is going first among those big three, you're probably going to end up overpaying for.
I think so.
If you take a flyer on whoever's going third out of those three, I think you could actually potentially get a little value there with the caveat that Robinson could just be a total afterthought by the middle of the season.
Yeah, I could still see them even trading him in a few weeks. Yeah, maybe because there will be injuries early in the season as always, unfortunately. And then the last thing to mention with Washington too. Not only is their backfield messy, like Washington's going to be good. I mean, Jaden Daniels, are you kidding me? He was awesome last night. Just the glimpse. It was just the reminder of, oh yeah, this guy's awesome. Like he's an elite guy. I know it's preseason, but still it just reminded you of that. He just loves playing football. He's just like, he's got the total package. And so in fantasy, I usually wait for quarterbacks. I talked about that a couple weeks ago. It's hard to pass on Daniels though. I liked having him on my team last year. I wouldn't mind having him on my team again. But I will say I am avoiding Terry McLaurin. But Debo's intriguing. Debo is pretty good value right now. If he ends up being the number one wide receiver to start the season, and if they never, who knows what they're going to figure out with McLaurin. I like Debo. Even if McLaurin's there, I like Debo. I think there's some value there for Debo Samuel. So one thought there. Let's talk one more kind of interesting, messy situation. The Patriots wide receivers. And I think that the default answer is just avoid. Avoid. We don't know who it's going to be. Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Collins. They got all these different names up there. Who is it going to be? But I'm in on Drake May. I'm in on Mike Vrabel. So if I'm in on those guys and the Patriots doing better and the offense, running the ball, Travion Henderson, and even Ramondre having a role, any of these wide receivers worth drafting? Who do you like? The value anywhere?
Again, for me, the big takeaway here is if you're somebody who punts or waits really late at tight end, Hunter Henry could still have value. He again, not an exciting
tight end two. I think
I don't know, man. I just think if we don't
draft him as a tight end two,
if we don't know who it's going to be, I think that he and Drake May showed glimpses of a little bit of a rapport last season.
Fair.
He's one of these guys who's always a red zone threat. So he's a tight end who catches touchdowns, which is really important at that position in fantasy. I do think that a receiver will emerge who has value. So you're right. We don't know who that is going into the season. Very worried about Stephon Diggs' health, and just worried that he may be on the back nine, if not the 17th hole of his career. I think he is trending in a bad direction. But we've seen this guy, Efton Chisholm, just light it up in the preseason, maybe a little kind of ghost of Julian Edelman's past there or something like that. Obviously not Julian Edelman, but one of these like
he went to Eastern Washington where Cooper Kupp went.
Right. I mean, he could follow that career trajectory of this high volume, a little bit more dynamic than you expect. They drafted Kyle Williams, who is their kind of receiver for the future. He hasn't had a consistent training camp, is what I've heard, but they think that he's kind of the most dynamic athlete there. And then if you're in a PPR league, I think Demario Douglas could have some value because they just kind of feed him these short little dump down passes. So there will be a receiver that emerges. We just don't know who it is yet. And so again, I think you just kind of take a shot on whichever one of them is left at the end of your draft. Maybe you just hold Efton Chisholm on your bench for a couple of weeks and see if it translates to the regular season. See if Kyle Williams kind of puts the training camp negativity behind him and blows up the way that they kind of expect him to and want him to. But yeah, your guess is as good as mine as to who that guy is.
I was buying the off-season narrative for Demario Douglas that, this is the guy you want. But then during training, I just haven't heard enough about him the last few weeks to really be excited about drafting him. But I would still like him on a team, taking him late as a flyer.
It's the same narrative that we heard last year and the year before. Demario Douglas looks like, no one ever says he looks like the most exciting receiver. They say he looks like the most reliable receiver at Patriots training camp. And we hear that every season. So he'll have a game or two where in a PPR league, he scores 13 points. But then he'll disappear for weeks at a time. So I'm probably not taking him. I'm taking a flyer on one of the guys that goes a little bit later in the draft. But somebody, because I agree with you, Vrabel's a great coach. Drake May is trending towards being a great quarterback in the NFL, and I think one of those guys is going to have value. And we just don't know what's going on with Stephon Diggs and his health, whether he's going to be ready at the start of the season or if he holds up for a whole season.
So if you can get him for good value, then yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It depends on what platform you're drafting on, and if he's ranked too high, and so yeah. Anyway, if he falls, then maybe snag him. All right, one last thing, and then we'll get to our pounding the table and let you know what guys we're most excited to draft. The overall teams that are concerning, and one thing in fantasy football that I had to learn more and more, and this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but you want players on good NFL teams, all right? You want fantasy players that are on winning teams, that score lots of points, that score touchdowns, okay? So on the flip side, that means you have to avoid players on bad teams. The challenge is we don't always know who those bad teams are going to be. And I was looking across the NFL, and there's a case to be made that a lot of these teams, there's positive excitement and energy surrounding these franchises, except for a few. And these are the ones where I feel like you could feel pretty good about avoiding just the team overall, where it doesn't mean you can't have anybody from their team, but you don't want to target them. You want to get them on a discount. You do not want to reach for these. The most obvious one, the Saints. The Saints want the number one pick. They're going to get the number one pick. I know they won their preseason game and they're all excited. Spencer Rattler, come on, get out of here with that. We don't want the Saints. But maybe Kamara, maybe there's a little value there, but I don't feel great about them. I've been banging the drum or pounding the table that the Dolphins are done. And that narrative down there is horrendous. Everything sounds bad. Now Achane's banged up. Not good in Miami. So those are the two obvious ones for me, just kind of overall teams. They're too concerning. I'm not excited about drafting those guys. Anything to add about those two or any other teams that come to mind for you?
I think you're dead on with the Saints. I mean, it seems like Rattler will probably be the starter at the beginning of the season. There'll be a game where he throws a 70-yard bomb to Rashid Shaheed and everybody gets excited for a couple of minutes. And that's the moment that you should trade Rashid Shaheed. It's just, so not much to add there. I think that I am zagging. I'm zigging with the Dolphins where everyone else is zagging. I think that there's value to be had there. Okay. I think the negativity around Tyreek Hill. So to be clear, I won't be drafting Tyreek. There's some real concerns there with his attitude, his commitment to the team, his relationship with Mike McDaniel and with Tua. But I still think that it's easy to hate on Mike McDaniel because he's kind of this diminutive, sort of nerdy looking NFL coach. And there is the problem that Tyreek sort of unlocks their whole offense. But I do think that Tua can still be a serviceable NFL quarterback. I still think that Jalen Waddle is a talented wide receiver in the NFL. If he can stay healthy,
you stayed on this train. We're letting you stay on it.
I think that where he is going in drafts is too late. I think there's value to be had with him. The Achane health stuff scares me. A name for people to remember. Don't draft this guy, but just remember him as a potential waiver guy is Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon.
Well, I wouldn't say don't draft him, but draft him late.
Maybe end of the draft.
If you're buying into Miami, I'm not buying into Miami, but if you are along those lines, Ollie Gordon is the name to remember.
Seems like Achane's going to start the season hurt. Everyone is assuming that Jalen Wright is the next guy up, but he has looked terrible both last season and in the preseason this year. And Ollie Gordon is a guy who, if he had come out of college 2 years ago, he would have been a day 2 pick. And then he had, he's one of these guys who had a better sort of second to last season than his final season in college. He rushed for like an ungodly number. I mean, it was 1,700 yards or something that he rushed for in his previous college season. So he could be a sneaky deep sleeper to take at the very end of your draft and just see if Achane is hurt, who do they roll out there as their starting running back? So I do think there's value to be had with the Dolphins. But I don't think that they're going to be a successful. I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs or be a successful NFL team this season. And so things could unravel there very quickly if McDaniel's the first coach to get fired, or heaven forbid if Tua gets injured again or something like that, or if Tyreek just says I'm done, I'm checking out on this situation.
Yeah, so I'm going to stand by. I think I don't. The Dolphins.
I guess I'm planting my flag on Waddle.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can have them. You can have them. However, the one thing to also remember is that all these teams are NFL teams, and they still do score points.
Right
now, you want the score. You want players on your fantasy team that score more points. But there are still points. So don't get me wrong. There are still players on the Dolphins that will, and there are players on the Saints that will catch passes and all that kind of thing. You just want to get the guys that have more. Now, two other teams that I'm not totally avoiding, but I understand some of the hesitation. The Browns, of course. Now Joe Flacco's the guy. I'll tell you the player that I'm pounding the table for in a moment. So I'm not totally out on the Browns. I probably am avoiding their backfield, though. And then with the Giants, I'm starting to kind of come around on the Giants that there's some potential there, especially with Jackson Dart, maybe later in the season. They might just do enough late in the season to keep Brian Daboll's job. But Neighbors' back injury is concerning. So there's sort of mixed vibes coming out of New York for me, where I do not feel confident drafting Malik Neighbors in the first round.
Yeah.
Maybe you can convince yourself in the second round, but I wouldn't spend a first round pick on him. I know it's not a huge difference, but first round, I got to feel really good about that guy.
Yeah.
And now you talk toe and back and
I mean, who are you looking when Neighbors comes up in your draft? You're looking at guys like Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake
Jr.
London, Brian Thomas Jr. I think that I would take, with what we know about Neighbors right now, I think I would take maybe all of them, with the possible exception of Drake London, ahead of Neighbors. That said, do you think that Dable is a good NFL coach?
Not so far, no.
I kind of think that he is a good coach who has been continuously dealt bad hands with him losing Saquon Barkley. I mean, the guy has had Daniel Jones has been the quarterback that he's had to work with.
Danny DeVito,
few seasons. That's right. Yeah. Tommy DeVito.
Tommy,
yeah.
his son, his grandson.
I actually kind of think that Dable is a smart offensive mind and that he gets the most from his players. I also think that Abdul Carter, this is fantasy, so we're talking about defense here. I think that they are going to have a ferocious defensive front, which means I think there will be a lot of games that they're in. And so there'll be a lot of games where they're using their running backs. And I kind of think that the hate has gone too far on Tyrone Tracy. Everyone just assumes that, what is it? Scatabo is, you know,
Scatabo.
He was a favorite college player of a lot of people, who is kind of, he's got a cool name, you know, but he's been injured. He hasn't been participating in the last couple of weeks. And I kind of think Tyrone Tracy could be a value at running back for the Giants, because I think they're going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, no, I think Tracy's great first half of the season for sure. And maybe if Scatabo toward the end of the year becomes kind of a guy that gets mixed in more and more. But yeah, Tracy's going to be great. I've got him on a team, so I'm excited about Tracy. He's good. He's solid. Yeah. And you get him such a discount. So late, seventh round or later. You're loving life. All right, so let's get to a couple comments real quick, and then we'll jump into our segment, Pounding the Table. We've already heard from you, so let us know the players that you are pounding the table for. We see a DJ Moore.
I like that one.
Interesting. We got to talk more about Caleb Williams.
The Bears looked good. DJ Moore looked good.
Much better. And then we got a question. Do you keep Josh Allen or Derrick Henry in a keeper league? No draft penalty, so you just keep one or the other. To start the draft with Josh Allen. So I would keep Josh Allen.
I don't know. I think it depends on how I'm trying to construct my roster, but I think I might go Derrick Henry. Just look at typical draft, who's going sooner. If it's a standard league, Henry's going ahead of Josh Allen, so I think I'm keeping Henry there. But that's a tough one. You feel good either way. You feel great either way.
I've come around a little bit because I'm more okay drafting Derrick Henry than I was like a month ago. Because I feel like he keeps slipping and we just keep overlooking. And I keep convincing myself, or the more that I read, I'm convinced that he's just a different type of player. Yes. We can't put him in the same category as other older running backs.
And his career,
he's built just so much differently.
He's built different. If you look at some of his work, like the stuff that he does to stay in shape and to stay sort of healthy and mobile during the offseason is pretty impressive for a player his age. And if you remember, his career sort of got off to a late start, right? He was kind of a late bloomer, so he has a lot of mileage on him. But yeah, I just think it's one of those ho hum. Derrick Henry's incredible. He's a great player. no one's excited about drafting him. But if he's your RB1, you just feel so good and so solid about that. So you feel great with Allen or Henry there.
Yeah, I feel, yeah. It depends on how your league goes as far as how early do quarterbacks go and that kind of thing. So, all right, let's get to our segment here. We call it our breakout segment, where we take a fantasy football concept, relate it to life, relate it to faith. And so today we are talking about pounding the table. And so every fantasy football season, there are certain players that all of us that play fantasy, we just really, really like. Like, we're convinced that we want to pursue them in our fantasy draft. And if they end up on our roster, then we're quick to passionately declare how amazing they are, and we're glad we selected them. And so there's always one or two guys on every roster that we have where we're overly confident and we just believe in what they're capable of doing. And so we have no problem letting everybody know about it. That we go, this is the guy this year. This is who you want to draft. This is who I know I'm going to draft. This is who I'm willing to, even take around early. And you're just confident that they're going to deliver. And so, when we pound the table, we make the case for, why that player will exceed everyone's expectations and why we think they're so great. We'll even defend any criticisms or questions that other people have about him. And then enthusiastically explain why he'll make such a big difference on our fantasy team. And so, as I grab a swig of water, who are the players that you are pounding the table for this season, Trip?
Let me start off this pounding the table segment with a bold prediction. Dare I say a flaming hot take, okay? And this is a guy who I have been in drafts where he has gone too early for me because my tendency is to wait on quarterback. But I've also been in drafts where I've seen him slip down a few rounds to a place where I think that he's really a value. And I'm talking about Joe Burrow. My hot take here is that Joe Burrow will pass for more than 5,000 passing yards this season, and that he's going to approach Peyton Manning's all-time passing yard record for a single season, which is 5,477 yards, which means that to pair that with another hot take, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins will be top 12 wide receivers this season. I think that the Bengals offense is going to be prolific. I think the way that they've played their starters in the preseason indicates that they're serious this season about contending. They don't like the way they've started off previous seasons. And their defense is going to be atrocious. And so it's going to be high-scoring games. So a quarterback that I'm pounding the table for, with the qualification that it depends on, is there a run on quarterbacks in your draft? And does this guy weirdly end up going in the 4th round? But if Joe Burrow slips to the kind of 5th, 6th round, if he's the 6th quarterback or later off the board for me, then I think that's a guy that I'm excited to draft. And I'm excited to get on board with the Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offensive experience this season.
Yes. And let me continue that conversation. I also like Higgins. I also like the Bengals, and I've got Joe Burrow on a team already. The player I'm pounding the table for, and this is actually a repeat, it's Chase Brown. I'm back, baby. Chase Brown delivered last year. And here he is again. He's still being undervalued. He's going like late in the 2nd round. I want to take him early in the 2nd round. I want him on my roster because, like you said, the offense is going to be fantastic. They're going to score a lot of points. Like we saw last night, they handed it to him at the goal line. He is a 3-down back. There are very few workhorse backs in the league. He's one of them. And because they have so many other weapons, like, he's a workhorse back that doesn't have to get 30 touches, but he's at least on the field and he has opportunities. He has opportunities to score, and he's going to put up legit fantasy numbers every single week. And he'll be definitely a top 10 running back.
Right.
And if not, some weeks he'll be a top 5 guy, and some weeks he might be the highest scoring running back. So I feel very good about him. And so I am pounding the table for Chase Brown. And we'll talk later about philosophies. But I like Taj Brooks as a handcuff there too. Because I think he would slide into that workhorse back as well. In that offense. So
Taj Brooks is a name to remember. Andre Iosivas is a name to remember, where if Higgins does get hurt, which there's a Decent likelihood that he does. Josephus continues to improve season over season, and he caught a bunch of touchdowns last season. We remember that he was one of their red zone, or forget that he was one of their red zone targets last year. So 2 great handcuff names to remember with that offense as well.
All right, let me give you another name here. We'll go to wide receivers, and I've got 2 wide receivers that I am pounding the table for, and this has been a couple years running as well that I've been outspoken about both of these guys. It's Nico Collins and it's DK Metcalf. Nico Collins in the late first round, if you want to take a wide receiver, he's the one I want to take because he is clearly the number one in Houston. They got a couple nice guys that are coming along. Christian Kirk, he'll be okay. But Nico Collins has demonstrated with big chunk yardage as well. So he gets it all. Catches, yards, touchdowns. Nico Collins, he's the guy you want in Houston. And because their running game is questionable, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and he's clearly the number one guy. I'm all in on Nico Collins. I'm also pounding the table for DK Metcalf and his new opportunity in Pittsburgh. He's got something to prove. Pittsburgh went out and got him. They believe in him. They see the talent. They know what he's capable of. Aaron Rodgers, when he trusts a guy, when he's got a guy, he locks in, he gets him the ball, and he throws touchdowns. Yes, Aaron Rodgers has one more year left in him. And when he pulls back to throw it down the field, you know who he's going to throw to? DK Metcalf. Some other nice receivers. Okay, maybe we'll see how they develop. It's all about DK in the passing game. Sure, they got some tight ends, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, but who's Rodgers going to be throwing to? DK Metcalf. And you're getting him late. Late third round, fourth round. I love the value. You're drafting him maybe as a wide receiver 3. I think he's definitely a wide receiver 2 with some weeks where he'll be a wide receiver 1. And maybe even being a consistent wide receiver 1. So I love that potential and possibility. So those are the wide receivers I'm all in. I'm pounding the table for them. What about for you?
I love both of those, and I'm in full agreement with Nico. I think you've kind of talked me into DK over the course of the preseason. I ended up drafting him this weekend in one of the drafts that I was doing and felt pretty good about it. So I've already mentioned T. Higgins. The 2 receivers that I had listed here, I've already mentioned T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle. I'll add one more to the list. I think Ricky Pearsall is a guy that I'm ready to pound the table. I'm ready to plant my flag. You have only heard bad news about every other member of the 49ers receiving core. And really for the last few weeks, you've only been hearing good news about Ricky Pearsall, that he's healthy, that he looks good, that he's developing great rapport with Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan is still a great offensive coach. Brock Purdy is a top half of the NFL quarterback, and he's got to throw to somebody. And so I think that that's good news for Ricky Pearsall and a guy that you and I disagree on, George Kittle. I also think that they have to utilize Kittle, and the way that Kittle has just shown staying power as a top tier tight end in the NFL as he's aged is encouraging to me, where I think I would love to see Kittle slip in my draft a little bit in tight end and take him. And I'm happy to have Ricky Pearsall as my wide receiver 3. I just think he's going to be the guy in that pass catching offense at the beginning of the season. So I'll add him to my list. But Nico is just he's the one for both of us.
Feel good about Nico.
What do you think about Pearsall and Kittle?
So I like Pearsall. I think getting him in the middle rounds is good value. And yeah, man, they drafted him high and had high hopes for him. And we still are waiting on Ayuk. Juwan Jennings is blowing his opportunity. Right. Yes. Oh my goodness, he's blowing it. So yeah, Pearsall's the guy. So Kittle, I go back and forth on. I don't know if I can pull the trigger as early as he's been going, but yeah, if he happened to slip, Kittle, he's solid. He's a veteran. We know what he's capable of. Brock Purdy trusts him. I've been burned by Kittle, and I think that's part of my hesitation. There have been years where he's just been injured, and those are the years that he's been on my team. So, so that's some hesitation there. All right, let's. I'm going to go back to the running back position and give you 2 more names I'm pounding the table for. Jordan Mason. I've been mentioning him multiple times throughout the summer, but the one stat that jumped out to me in researching him, last year he forced a league best 37% missed tackles. So he just makes guys miss. He makes defenders miss. And so, yes, he was running in the San Francisco offense, but we know Minnesota has a good offense, and they can run the ball well, and Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy's looked good so far. So we can feel good about this offense. And the biggest thing that I'm banking on is Aaron Jones being an older running back, maybe even being more of the third down running back. And maybe Jones will have a role catching passes. But I just think Mason's the more reliable rusher and the guy that as the season goes along will be the one carrying the ball, getting goal line touches and touchdowns. So I'm banging the table for Jordan Mason, especially you get him so late. You get him really late. I think he's probably rising a little bit, but man, you snag that guy late, you're going to be loving life with Jordan Mason. And then the other guy, as a last round kind of guy, he actually went to the same high school as mine, from Weddington, but Will Shipley. and what I love is, one, Kenneth Gainwell is gone. He's in Pittsburgh messing up their backfield. Now he'll have a slight role there, but Shipley's the clear running back 2 behind Barkley. And guess what? As a fantasy community, we all sort of are nervous that, wait, Saquon Barkley had so many carries last year. The following year, after guys get that many carries, it's not good. And he's on the cover of Madden. So who do you want? You want the backup. And who's the backup? It's Will Shipley on the Super Bowl champions. So don't overlook Will Shipley. So I'll bang the table for him as well. All right, give me one or two more names, and then we'll get to the spiritual side of this.
Well, I will tell you, I love those running backs. As I'm looking at running back ADP, there just aren't a lot of names that jump out at me as guys that I think are sort of improperly valued. I find myself more and more ending up with Isaiah Pacheco on my roster as like my third running back. I just think I understand all the reasons to be negative about him, but in the drafts that I have been in, the hate has gone too far, and I'm comfortable taking him a couple of spots ahead of where he's being drafted in ADP. I already mentioned George Kittle. I mean, I'll just say, to go back very early in the preseason on one of our episodes, I said that I was officially buying my ticket. I was on board for the Caleb Williams experience and the Ben Johnson sort of Bears. And then there was a lot of reason to be nervous about that the past few weeks. And then we got a little glimpse of what they could be in their preseason game this weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and pound the table, plant my flag for Caleb Williams, and say that I am comfortable rolling with Caleb Williams if I wait on quarterback as my starting quarterback going into the season. Now, if things just look atrocious a few weeks in, then I may have to pivot in a major way. But I really, really liked what I saw in terms of the way that they were helping him make completions and sort of get into a groove offensively in that preseason game. His first play of the game, bootleg to the right, simple little dump off to Colston Loveland. And it was the perfect way to start a game if you need to build the confidence of a young quarterback who's had his confidence hurt. And then they just rolled in that first possession. So I'm going to go ahead and say Caleb Williams is another guy that I feel good about.
If the Bears could play the Bills' third string defense every week, I would be so confident in the Bears. No,
there were some second stringers out there.
No. I'm just kidding. I think we saw enough to go, okay, well, this might work in Chicago. Yeah. They've got the weapons, and Ben Johnson, I'm coming around. So I haven't jumped on the bandwagon right away. I've been way hesitant and cautious. But there's some signs. They're starting to come together there.
Chicago is such a pessimistic sports market. You know, when things go bad, they're described as if it's the worst possible scenario. And Chicago sports fans have a lot of reasons to be depressed. But I just think we need to remember who Ben Johnson was and how excited people were when they hired him, who Caleb Williams was supposed to be when they drafted him, and sort of the ceiling. The bear case is we know it, but the ceiling, the best case scenario, I think is a really, really high ceiling. And so I'm willing to take a shot there with quarterback, with DJ Moore, who we've already talked about, with Colston Loveland, or maybe even Cole Kmet if I'm feeling kind of crazy as not my first tight end, but I'd draft Cole Kmet with the last pick of a draft and hold on to him as my second tight end. Seems like they want to utilize their tight ends a lot. There's so many different pass catchers there that it's hard to know how that's going to go. But Cole Kmet is a good tight end, man.
Yeah. He was probably a player that I pounded the table for years ago, but they're both good. I just don't, from a fantasy perspective, I don't want to play the guessing game on who's going to get the touchdown that week.
Yeah. So I don't want either one of them as my first tight end.
No, I can't.
But it makes me feel good about Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
good tight ends support young, immature quarterbacks, and so I think that it would be a good scenario for him.
All right, just real quickly, the quarterbacks that I'm pounding the table for: Drake May and Dak Prescott. I love the value. I love where you get them. The Cowboys are going to be throwing for 400 yards a week. If we love CeeDee Lamb, we love George Pickens, guess what? Who's throwing it to him? It's Dak Prescott. So I'm good drafting Prescott. I've talked a lot about Drake May as my later round guy that has huge upside. Very excited about him. And then at the tight end position, who's all reliable? David Njoku. And who does Joe Flacco love to throw to? David Njoku. So I'm pounding the table for the value and the player that Njoku is, the reliability, the consistency. 3 years in a row, top 10 guy. You can't go wrong drafting him. And people are still overlooking him because he is on the Browns. I get it. And then we mentioned earlier Tyler Warren. Yes, we've seen it in preseason. He jumps off the screen. We knew the hype coming in. He's a legit guy, legit prospect. The Colts went up and took him early in the first round. This is, and like I said earlier, I don't know who the receivers, like who's going to be the guy at the receiver position. So I like Warren. So I'm going to go the tight end route there. So if I can complement those two tight ends on my roster, I'll be pumped. So those are the players we are pounding the table for. But more importantly, as we think about this concept of getting all excited about telling you about our favorite players to draft, how does this play out in our own lives? What or who are we most passionate about and most willing to speak up and declare our allegiance to? And truth be told, are we more likely to pound the table in an attempt to convince people of our political perspective, why our favorite NFL team is going to win, why a certain TV show is the absolute best? Have you seen it? You got to watch it. Season 3 is the best. We do this. And then we talk about the restaurant. Oh man, I had some sushi recently. I can't tell you about how great the sushi was. Like, we love doing this. And then now as a young parent, well, I'm old, but my kids are young, but the parenting technique. This is what you have to do as a parent. And we pound the table for these kinds of things. But here's the question. Are we willing to passionately, humbly, and respectfully pound the table, so to speak, to tell others about Jesus and to tell others why he is the answer? The ways he's changed our life, the ways that he's transformed us, and why he'll make a big difference in someone else's life, and how much he loves us. Are we pounding the table to let people know just how much he loves us and how his word is true and how we've seen his promises come true and how we've seen, the consistency, the faithfulness, the reliability of his word and his presence in our life? And so are we pounding the table to tell people about his greatness, his power, his supernatural power, the miracles we've seen and experienced in our life, and the reasons why we so strongly believe in him? And he's got way more reasons to for us to explain than given stats earlier about breaking tackles, right? So are we willing to pound the table? And I think too, evaluating, wait, why don't I? What's holding me back? Why am I not pounding the table? Why am I more willing to pound the table about my favorite movie than I am about the God who loves me and has saved me and has played such an important role in transforming my life inside and out? And so I hope it's encouraging but convicting too. And so, Trip, as you think about this concept of pounding the table and talking about our faith and being confident in sharing just about who Jesus is and what he's done, what comes to mind for you?
Well, first of all, I just love that you include this as a point of emphasis every year at this time of year for us, Bryce. Just right. It's a topic to keep coming back to over and over again. Look at how beautiful Jesus is. Look at how valuable he is. Look at how powerful he is. I mean, that's what stood out to me as you were mentioning so many of the things that we are prone to pound the table for, so many of the things that I am prone to get excited about. And, we got to be careful how we use this word, but so many of the things that I'm prone to evangelize, right, are the things that I spend a lot of time paying attention to, getting excited about. And I look at something and I say, this is beautiful. This is powerful. This is authoritative. This is where I find my security. And there's just, in that regard, there is no one like Jesus. But it's not always as easy to get him kind of in front of our eyes and sort of get the spotlight of our hearts on him as it is the latest Netflix show or the next sporting event or whatever political figure is kind of rising through the public ranks. And so as I think about this, it's important for me to just say, am I going to the scripture? Am I going to the Bible? And especially, am I going to the Gospels, the stories of Jesus and meeting him there? seeing that there's never been anyone else like him. When people encountered Jesus in the Gospels, they would say, no one ever spoke with this sort of authority. Or you'd get a real sense of, no one has ever loved me the way that this person loves me, right? No one's as powerful as he is, but also as gentle as he is. No one is as safe as he is, but also adventurous as he is, And so for me, I want to get the stories, the good news of Jesus in front of my eyes and in front of my heart, because then it naturally starts to arise in me. I want to pound the table for Jesus, right? It's C.S. Lewis who said that when we really enjoy something, the final expression, the highest fruition of that enjoyment is when we start to tell other people about it, right? And that's what's happening when you're sharing your favorite new TV show or your favorite sleeper pick in fantasy football. You're excited, and you get more excited when you share it with others. And so, to see the beauty and the glory of Jesus, and then to take that step of faith and that step of courage to talk to someone else about it. That doesn't mean that you go out. The first step for you might not be going out and sharing the gospel start to finish with your next door neighbor. It might be talking to your spouse about, here's something beautiful and new that I've seen about Jesus this week. Or for me, talking to your kids. What a blessing to be able to talk to your kids about Jesus and how great that he is. So I love this topic, man. And I'm thankful that you set the table for us on this every year at this time of year.
And I appreciate it. And I think the one thing to remember too, we're not talking about Bible thumping, like bashing people on the head.
Great point.
We're talking about pounding the table in comparison to, again, how excited we get and how, we're declaring our allegiance to certain players. I'm a Nico Collins guy, right? I've been adamant about Nico Collins, but are we truly speaking up and declaring our allegiance to Jesus and saying, hey, I'm a Jesus follower. I'm surrendered to him, and he's the one that I select to follow, and I'm on his team, right? And so let's be confident and bold and excited and passionate about that. And so let's look at a couple verses. 1 Peter 3:15 gives us this encouragement: but in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And so, it's so key with gentleness and respect too. But let's be ready. Let's be ready to talk about Jesus and give a defense for why we're hopeful, why we have peace, why we have joy, and why he's changed our life and all the ways that he's shown up and made his love evident to us. And then also, Romans 1:16, this is what Paul declares: for I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. And so if we're struggling with, sharing our faith and talking about our faith, well, wait, are we ashamed of it? Why are we ashamed? We have no reason to be ashamed of it, right? So we could declare, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I embrace the gospel. I believe the gospel. So I'm going to tell you about it, and not feel bad about that. And so, let's be Christ's ambassadors, and let's, lovingly, graciously pound the table and let people know that, hey, he's the answer. He's the one we truly need. And he's the one that my hope is in, and he's the one who always delivers. And then I'll share this, and then Trip, you can wrap us up. But Philippians 3:7-8, again, Paul's writing, whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. And then in the book, Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper, he writes, whenever something is of tremendous value to you and you cherish its beauty or power or uniqueness, you want to draw others' attention to it and awaken in them the same joy. That is why Paul's all-consuming goal in life was for Christ to be magnified. Christ was of infinite value to Paul, and so Paul longed for others to see and savor this value. This is what it means to magnify Christ, to show the magnitude of his value. And so how many times today do we talk about, this player, the value of this guy, right? We're talking about the value of different players. There's none more valuable than Jesus, right? And so let's savor that value. Let's magnify him. He's worthy to be magnified.
I love that quote. And I'm so glad that you included John Piper in here, because John Piper is a pastor that has been very influential to me over the course of my life. And John Piper, he has really made a lifelong pastoral ministry of talking about this one thing.
Yeah.
Look how valuable Jesus is. And if you don't know, look again. And so I would just say, I suspect that there are some people out there listening who are saying, okay, I know that Jesus is something that I'm supposed to be excited about. I know that he's someone I'm supposed to magnify. But if I'm honest, in the busyness and distraction of my day-to-day life, I don't always feel that way about Jesus. And I just want to say to anyone listening who feels that way, I'm right there with you. And if we're not excited about Jesus, it's not because of some deficiency or lack of value in him. It's just because we haven't seen him clearly and fully enough recently, right? And so John Piper is great on this, and I would highly recommend, this is what pastors do. We recommend books to people, but this one is a mercifully short little devotional book called Seeing and Savoring Jesus by John Piper. Short little chapters on the things that are powerful and beautiful and glorious about Jesus. And if you don't know where to start, get a hold of that book, Seeing and Savoring Jesus, and just read one little chapter a day or whenever you have time to pick it up. And I think you'll start to feel your heart warming and becoming excited toward Christ again.
So good. And again, with the parallel, think about it. If you watched Houston's preseason game the other day and you saw Nico Collins, you'd be excited about Nico Collins.
Yeah, you got to see it, right? Yeah, you got to experience it. Yeah.
And so we got to open our eyes to see what Jesus is doing and start, listening to other people's stories too gets you excited. Like when I'm hearing people and the impact that Christ has had on their life, man, that fires me up too, to be reminded of my story and my journey and my testimony. And so lots of different ways, but diving into scripture and just reflecting on his character and his word. And again, the people around us that we're seeing the evidence of God all around us.
It's a good reminder to our leagues that are listening out there, to our commissioners that are listening, that sharing Christ and getting sort of pounding the table about Jesus together, it has a compounding effect among Christians. But often it takes someone taking that first step of courage, maybe even the risk of a little bit of awkwardness, to say, hey, can I tell you guys about something that has been special about Jesus to me this week, or something that I've seen the Lord do in my life this month or these past few months? And often when you open your mouth to say that, you'll find that the people around you, the brothers and sisters in Christ around you, begin to open their mouth, and there is a multiplying effect there. So, and that's why we set up these leagues in the Fantasy Football Fellowship. I mean, because we want you to get in spaces with brothers and sisters in Christ where you say that first thing about the goodness of Jesus and hear what everyone else around you has to say about that too.
Amen. Absolutely. No, it's true. Yeah, it's contagious.
It's contagious. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It really is. So good stuff. So that's this week's breakout. And so hopefully when you hear over the next couple of weeks, fantasy analysts or whoever pounding the table, I hope it's a reminder. It's like, wait, what am I really pounding the table about? And even when you're talking about your favorite restaurant, you go, all right, fine. But let me tell you I got to tell you about something even more important. You can talk about the sushi. Yeah. Remember what's more important.
Talk about Jesus over the sushi.
That's right. There you go. Let's go get some sushi. I got to tell you about Jesus. That's a good point. I like that. All right. So we've only got a couple of minutes left here today, but thanks to everybody listening and watching, and great to see some new people are finding our page and finding our content. And so glad to have you involved as well. And all these leagues that are starting up around the country, we're really, really excited. So it's going to be an awesome fall. Can't wait to see what God is going to do through Fantasy Football Fellowship. And so if you haven't become a member yet, be sure to check out fantasyfootballfellowship.com, and you'll get the weekly breakouts for free all season long. All right. So the last thing we want to do before we wrap up, Trip and I are excited about our auction draft tonight. We do have two other leagues. If you would like to play against us this season, you can go to unpackingit.com/fantasy, unpackingit.com/fantasy. Those are the leagues that we're running here at the ministry. So you could check those out. We'd love to have you participate. But nonetheless,
bring it on.
That's right. We're
good luck playing for second.
Well, one of us is going to have to win.
Good luck playing for third.
We better do it. Yeah. So we want to share just some of our fantasy philosophies and strategies. And those of you that are watching live right now, you can share some of your fantasy strategies and philosophies. And what's fascinating is I listen to different fantasy analysts, and their philosophies I disagree with. Like some of their takes on certain players, I'm like, okay, cool, I can track. But their approach to a draft or how they construct a roster, I don't go that way. And what's crazy is there's so many different ways to win in fantasy. Because the same is true in the NFL. There are teams that lean heavy on the run, teams that are want to air it out. There are teams that are more defensively focused, all that kind of thing. And so in fantasy, there are different ways you lean and all that. But I'll share some of my thoughts just from playing 22 years and winning some championships. But the one key for me that I really have not changed on is that I really embrace diversification. I want diverse rosters. And if I play in multiple leagues, I like to have diverse players too. Of course, I got the guys that I'm pounding the table for. They'll be on multiple rosters. But when I'm talking about diversification, I'm talking about I don't want 3 players from one NFL team. Because if things do unravel, I don't want 3 guys that now I'm suffering for. And I also, if I draft, so for instance, I'm in on the Steelers this year because I like the value. Because I think a lot of people are overlooking the Steelers. If I get DK Metcalf early, I'm not going to draft Jalen Warren. But if I miss on Metcalf, then I'll get Warren. But I don't want the receiver and the running back on my same fantasy team. That's not my philosophy. I'm also not real big on the stacks. Like,
I was going to ask about QB wide receiver stack there.
I'm okay. I think CJ Stroud, because I'm in on Nico Collins, so I like CJ Stroud, and I'm fine drafting him as my second quarterback, but I'm not actively pursuing the stacks. I'm not a stack guy. That's kind of been a popular thing in the last few years, especially. That's not my thing. Like, I drafted this receiver. I got to go get the quarterback. No, I still like to diversify. I like different teams represented. I don't always like the players from the same offense. And then I also like to diversify my upside players versus my steady players. I don't want a bunch of boring players, but I also don't want a ton of upside guys, boom or bust guys. I got to have a little bit of both. Same with old and young players, which I talked about last week. I don't want all rookies, and I don't want all old guys. But if I've got Devontae Adams here at receiver, and then I've got Omarion Hampton at running back, cool. I got a rookie, I got an old guy, I'm good to go. So that's how I like to build my team. And so that will mean in the middle of the draft, like there's guys I'm kind of crossing off my list, which not everybody feels comfortable doing. But I go, I've already got a Chargers player. I'm not going with another Chargers player. So those are my thoughts.
I mean, I think I want to go back to what you said right at the beginning, which is you should have a strategy, right? Your strategy can't just be, I'm just going to get in there and see how it goes and just take the next player that's at the top of the kind of draft board. I mean, you've got to know what your approach to winning and sort of, I always tell people, with the maybe you're in one of these leagues where everybody does a $20 buy-in and second place gets their money back, but no one cares who finishes in second place in your fantasy football league. So you are putting a strategy together to try and finish in first place. And if I'm not finishing in first, I don't really care if I finish in second or in 11th place, So I think you need to know, what is my strategy? So I'm more of a fan of the QB wide receiver stack. But I know that going in, and that shapes how I think about a draft. So that's my biggest takeaway from what you just said is, do you have a plan? Do you have an idea of what's going to set your team apart? Maybe you're going to go for the stud RBs early in your draft, and then make sure that you have handcuffs for all of your essential running backs, and then you're going to try to patch it together with wide receivers over the course of the season. That's one approach that you can take. I mean, there's so many different ways to win, but do you know what your philosophy of drafting and your philosophy of team building is going to be? And that's why I love this game, because I think it is watching football is fun, exciting, manly. You can do it with anybody, any family member. But playing fantasy football is also a little bit nerdy. And so, do you know your nerdy plan going into the draft? Do you have your kind of your kind of quirky strategy that's going to set your team apart from the other players in your league? So yeah, I like this topic for that reason.
Absolutely. So the other big topic is handcuffing, and it gets debated a lot. I've listened to different analysts have different takes on it. Where I land on it is I like to target the backup running backs on other teams. So I want to get the backup from, if I'm playing with Trip, if he drafts a guy early, I want to get his handcuff because I'm rooting now for his guy to go down. So, no, I'm just kidding. But seriously, but no, then I want that backup guy. So to me, you're limited when your bench has handcuffs. Like I don't like that when I've got the same backfield. Yeah. Again, I don't like a bunch of players from the same team. So it kind of goes back to that philosophy that filters into the handcuffing. And so now there are a few scenarios where I do like the backup, or, like Chase Brown, he's a little smaller. I could see him getting injured. and I would like Taj Brooks. So I'm okay there. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, like those guys are older players. So there's like a couple teams, but like I'm not getting like Jonathan Taylor, I'm not getting his back up. Those guys are not. DJ Giddens, maybe we'll see, but I'm not going to have him on my. If I had Jonathan Taylor, I don't want DJ Giddens.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it depends on the player for the most part, but in general, I'm not. Oh, I got to get the handcuff guy. I'm not that guy.
I agree with you. I would say if I take a running back in the first 2 rounds for whom there is a very obvious handcuff, a guy who is going to have immediate value if that guy gets hurt, you're right. So I would have said a few weeks ago that Christian McCaffrey, I needed to have Isaac Guerrero on my bench. Now we don't know who that's going to be. I would say with Derrick Henry, we don't know who that person would be. You have rightly pointed out in this episode that Saquon Barkley, we have a high degree of confidence that it would be Will Shipley, and Shipley would immediately become like a solid RB2, I think, if Saquon went down. And so that's the scenario where I'm considering a handcuff. But really, when you are handcuffing running backs, you're taking 2 roster spots and you are devoting both of them to one success scenario. Whereas if you take somebody else's handcuff,
now you got
if
options.
you draft Zach Charbonnet and then Kenneth Walker gets hurt, you have a great running back that you can employ on your team. Or if you're doing well at running back on your roster already, the Kenneth Walker owner is freaking out. Right. And so you can go try to shop Zach Charbonnet to him and say, hey, I'll trade him for this wide receiver 2 that you've got here. I'll hold on to other people's handcuffs as sort of lottery tickets. Sometimes it doesn't pay off, but often as the season goes on, you can turn that into a valuable trade for your team, or you've got a great player that you can now move into your starting lineup.
Having the handcuff heading into the playoffs is key. The fantasy playoffs.
You can do that. You can address that later in the season. That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. A couple other things real quickly. Give yourself one reach a draft. It's all about value in fantasy football, but there's going to be the one guy that you're pounding the table for. You got to reach and give yourself, maybe take him around early. Like for me, I'm planning on taking Chase Brown early in the second round. I've got the 14th pick. I'll take him, 15th. So 14th, 15th, those are my 2 picks. I'm going to get a wide receiver and Chase Brown. That's my plan. Now things change, but I'm willing to take him. Now where ADP would say he's a late second, early third, that's going to be my one reach because I'm so convinced of him. So give yourself one. Don't go crazy with it. And then the other thing is, don't panic. Don't panic in the draft. You've got to have contingency plans ready to go when, not if, when you get sniped.
Mm-hmm.
Picks are going to be going. And then all of a sudden, the guy before you takes the guy that you were ready to take. And you're going to be bummed. But guess what? The clock is ticking. 45 seconds, 44 seconds. You better have another plan. Otherwise, you're going to be panicked. And then you're going to go, and then you're going to take Joe Mixon. And you're going to be devastated. And you're going to be stuck with Joe Mixon. And you don't want Joe Mixon. All right. So always have that contingency plan, even if you're one pick away. You're like, oh, I'm going to get my guy. Nope. No, you're not, because you're going to get sniped. So that's going to happen at least once in your draft, I bet.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I would say that my number one practical tip for drafting that I've started to give people more and more, and that I use all the time, is I want to have an idea going into my draft of with the running back position and the wide receiver position, how many players total do I need to have in each of these positions to come out of this draft feeling like my team is stable and has a chance to be a good team? With quarterback, I'm happy to carry one quarterback. I'm happy to carry one tight end, but I want a lot of running backs and wide receivers. And so what I'll do, most drafting platforms at this point, when it comes up your turn to pick, right? Most platforms have that little line that's further down the draft board that shows you how many picks are going to be made before you get to choose again. And so I'm always scrolling down and seeing, okay, if I take a running back here, what wide receivers am I considering in that next slot, or what running backs might I be less inclined to take when I get to that next draft position because I have taken one here? So that's my number one very specific practical draft strategy, is consider the kind of players that you're going to be looking at when your next pick comes around. And that's definitely good. If you're on the ends of your draft, of a snake draft, you've got to look 20, 25 slots down and say, who am I going to be thinking about the next time that this comes around? Because if there's a run on quarterbacks, am I just out of luck? And am I, all of a sudden I'm starting, I don't know, Trevor Lawrence or, Daniel Jones or something, like, heaven forbid. So I'm always looking down to where that next line is for my team to know who I'm going to be thinking about the next time around.
It's good. I like it. All right. A couple other things. Look for guys in contract years. Sometimes if you're debating two different players, you're like, all right, this guy's in a contract deal. Let's go with him.
A little motivation. Yeah.
I try to avoid the guys that hold out. I avoid guys who are already injured, guys who are already suspended. Makes it easy to cross those guys off your list. I know people like Rashee Rice. You're trying to figure out the value for him. I don't want to try to calculate how many games he's going to play, when he's going to play. I don't want to deal with it. And then also, don't forget one last Google search right before you hit submit or hit draft on that player. Make sure there's no last second weird injury that just came out in the last 20 minutes. Make sure every pick, Google that player one more time. Maybe again, even on Twitter too.
Be scrolling down. When it's not your turn to choose, chances are you're going to have a good stretch of time in between your picks. You should be scrolling down and saying, oh, all of a sudden, there's that little red X mark that's next to Joe Mixon, right there. Oh, what happened to Jalen McMillan? Why does he have that little warning next to him? You have time to look at that when you're not on the clock. Don't wait until there are 15 seconds left for your pick and then try to figure out, wait, what's the latest on so-and-so's injury history? That always causes panic and will cause you to do something stupid in your draft.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So have fun. It's always a great time drafting, but there's some tips and strategies to consider today. But it's a fun show. Always great being with you guys. Trip, excited to be in the draft room with you tonight.
Season. Bring it on, man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun tonight. Yeah,
Here it is.
I'm ready. I'm locked in.
So we will let you know how it turned out next week. And man, we're getting close. I know. Sunday I've got a draft, and so it's happening at my church. We got over 6 leagues at our church. That's drafting awesome on Sunday with some pizza, and we'll be fired up.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So we're excited about it. We've got an all girls league. 12 nice, women, man. 12 women in an all women league.
The women's league at my church is fierce, man. Like there's some legit fantasy football knowledge there, and we actually have a league where some of those they'll come together. Like the best of the women's league will play the best of the men's league.
Nice.
And I'm telling you, man, the women have won, I would say 2/3 of our seasons the last few years. So
I believe it.
So look out for those all ladies leagues, man. They're ferocious.
I believe it. Wait till Maddie Johnson and Michaela Johnson get in the game. We're a few years away. Right, those are my daughters. Those are my daughters.
Yeah, watch out. Yeah. They're raising them up in the ways of the fantasy football manager. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't hate fantasy football because dad
right.
loves
Dad
fantasy
talks about
football.
it too much. Yeah.
Hopefully not. So hopefully I'm pounding the table and they're enticed. So anyway, today's topic all about pounding the table. And as much as we love talking fantasy, Jesus is the most valuable and he is worthy of our praise and honor. And he deserves all the glory. So that's the message of today, as much as we love goofing around talking fantasy. But for Trip Smith, I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a fantasy manager and a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected. And through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans and fantasy managers who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast.